Live from Washington, I'm Aisha Tanzim and you're watching Access Point. Hello and welcome. Recent attacks on two TV channels in Karachi serve as a reminder of the threats faced by journalists in Pakistan. These threats do not all come from one group, but they do all serve one purpose: to intimidate journalists, to try and stop them from reporting accurately and independently. Do these tactics succeed? Is media in Pakistan free? Let's find out what our guests think. Bob Deeds is the Asia Program Coordinator for the Committee to Protect Journalists. He's joining us in our New York studios. Bob, welcome to Access Point.
Thank you, Aisha. Nice to be here again.
Hopefully we'll soon be joined by other guests, and I'll introduce them as they arrive in our show. But Bob, Committee to Protect Journalists has called Pakistan one of the most dangerous places for journalists to work, and consistently for the last several years. Do you see any improvements?
No, we see, well, we have to call it a deteriorating situation. I think we've watched several governments come and go now for quite a while, and frankly, none of them have been able to come to grips with this problem. Looking at Pakistan from the outside, it looks like the situation really has gotten worse in general in terms of general security. And I think journalists are part of that, the victimization of journalists are part of that growing insecurity in Pakistan.
Okay, now we're also joined by Azhar Abbas, who used to be the managing director of news at Geo, and now he's the CEO of an upcoming channel, Bold News. Mr. Abbas, welcome to Access Point.
Thank you, Aisha. Thank you for having me on your show.
Now, Mr. Abbas, you were at the helm of one of the biggest news channels in Pakistan. Would you say that media in Pakistan is free to report as it chooses?
Well, as far as the freedom of press is concerned, I think it's pretty much free in terms of whatever we want to report. There are, of course, pressures at times from the government, at times from the establishment, which is the military establishment. But the most dangerous, where journalists actually, tend to do some sort of self-censorship, are the militant groups, are the known state actors. They exist in cities. It's not just about, they are in the FATA region or in some of the tribal regions. It's especially Balochistan has become very, very difficult to report, and that is, you don't know who is actually going to come against or go against you or come after you, be it the security establishment, the security agencies, or the militants. And even now in cities, it has become very, very difficult. The Geo, when I was working for Geo, we lost quite a few journalists in Swat killed by militants. In Karachi, allegedly killed by one of the the militant wing of a political party. So yes, there is freedom. There is as such no censorship. But journalists do tend to apply self-censorship, and they are reporting from certain ends.
And as you said, I've talked to a lot of journalists who are working in KPK, reporting from Peshawar on the tribal areas, and they say sometimes we request our management to back off and take it easy because our lives are in danger. So, as you say, maybe not censorship, but self-censorship. Mr. Deeds, the question is, what should the government do about it? Because it's not just coming from the government, it's coming from non-state actors. It's coming from the militant groups that are killing not just journalists, but other people in Pakistan.
Yes, it's a problem. And over the last decade or so, we haven't seen a government that's been able to step up and really address these problems. The international community has looked at the situation, and the United Nations has even come to bear on it. And there is movement to try and address these questions of the impunity with which attacks take place. Frankly, for the government to take some steps, I'd like to quote Mazhar Abbas, Azhar's brother, frankly, in a piece he just wrote for the Freedom Network in Pakistan. Mazhar asked for an ombudsman to address these problems, to look into the security. Mazhar wants the government to declare attacks on the media and journalists as terrorist attacks and identify them as such. And Actually, I think the entire journalist community wants the government to appoint a special prosecutor so that attacks on journalists would get some sort of fast-track response from the government.
So there are two separate issues there. There are attacks on journalists by militant groups. We recently saw bomb explosions outside two TV channels, outside one TV channel, the other one didn't go off, but attacks on two TV channels in Karachi. But there's also another issue here, Mr. Dietz, which is dozens, if not hundreds of websites by Baloch journalists or activists are blocked in Pakistan. Some of them news websites. And CPJ has reported on it, hasn't it?
Yes, this is a problem. We're seeing in Balochistan, we're seeing a combination of militant activity combined with legitimate journalism, and very often it gets to be difficult for us to discern which people are engaged in outright militant political activity and which people are honestly legitimate journalists. But I think Azhar, in saying that Balochistan has maybe become the flashpoint for journalists now, is completely accurate. We're seeing a really decimating attack on the journalist community. Not always coming from the government, not always coming from the intelligence sides. Very often we're seeing it come from other Baloch groups. And the whole place has gotten to be a warren of violence, which the government hasn't been able to bring under control.
Now, Mr. Abbas, what I want to ask you is, how has it impacted journalism itself in Pakistan?
Well, Aisha, journalism obviously will get in there will be impact on journalism. Like if people who are working in some areas where it is difficult to report honestly, it is difficult to report the truth, it is difficult to tell the truth, then obviously, I mean, like there are compromises and it becomes very difficult. You have to compromise on certain things, and you are absolutely right that not just in KPK, but in Balochistan also and in some other parts, journalists actually tell the management. I mean, like I was managing news, and some of my reporters and my bureau chief of a city, I mean, on more than one occasion, asked me to, like either tone down certain reporting. There's too much pressure. They don't want to, like at times actually they send report, but they say that don't take our name, don't take the name of the reporter, otherwise his life will be in danger. So yes, I mean, like obviously there is an impact on journalism. But I would also like to say that, as Bob was saying, yes, government needs to take certain actions, government needs to take certain measures to provide protection. But also the media organizations need to do actually, come forward, do something about the people, about the journalists, about the professionals who are working in the field, and look at how the license insurance is covered. I mean, it's ridiculous. The type of protection that some of the media organizations are giving is really, really ridiculous, I would say.
Is there training, Mr. Abbas, is there training for journalists who are reporting in conflict areas?
Well, there is certain training, and I think Bob also knows, and then there have been, some different international organizations that have those who have helped. Some big organizations, like when I was at GEO, I spent a lot of budget paying my people for training into, like reporting in conflict areas and all whatnot. But the thing is that it's just, like you give some journalists, but what journalists today need is when he or she steps out of the office, go in a conflict area, go even in cities to cover, where you don't know. There'll be a bomb blast, there'll be an attack. I mean, the Express News staff that was killed recently, they were just there. They were not even covering. They were sitting in their DSNG van when some militants came and then just shot them down. So, I mean, when they go out, they should at least know that night when it happens, that their family, what will happen to their family in future. This is the kind of fear that is now generating in the journalist community. Unless and until their organization provides that cover to them. Extra cover, to be perfectly honest, if you're working in Pakistan. Nothing. I mean, like the impact is going to be more severe on journalism, on reporting itself.
And you're right, Express News, we saw there, even the coverage of Express Tribune, which is an English language newspaper, their coverage slightly changed, moved more towards the center. They used to be more towards the left. I have reports of columnists being told to tone down their rhetoric or revise their columns. Mr. Dietz, so that's the one side, the militants who are going to come and kill you and attack you, and the owners need to train the journalists, make sure they have life insurance, take care of their families. On the flip side, we see the correspondent of the New York Times thrown out of the country without clear indication of why that happened. We've seen some other correspondents who've had to run from the country and take political asylum. We tried very hard. Yesterday and today, I was on the phone for hours trying to reach the Interior Ministry, the Information Ministry, ISPR. Those that we got in touch with were not authorized to speak on the record, and those who were authorized did not take our calls. So if you still want, this is for anybody in the government of Pakistan, any ministry, if you still want to have your point of view heard, you have my number. Your embassy in Washington has my number. Your press consular has my number. My cell phone's right here. Text me. I will take your comment, and I will ask my producer to call you back. But Mr. Dietz, you talk to them. What do they tell you about why they're doing this?
The government, they give no reasons. They give no justifications. In the Declan Walsh case, there's been no information whatsoever except the most terse statements coming. Declan is the New York Times correspondent. In terms of shutting down websites, this isn't unique to Pakistan. We see them as trying to silence dissident voices. You know, we are trying to meet with the current government, and we hope to be there in March, and we're going to have a CPJ delegation coming. And we haven't been able to arrange meetings yet, but we hope they'll be completed. The arrangements will be completed. I think what really has to happen at this point is that Pakistani journalists have to step up and take responsibility for their own safety. And when I say Pakistani journalists, I mean journalists in the broadest sense, the entire industry. I think even with the best of will at this point, I'm not sure the government could really ensure their safety or really actively pursue cases. I think it's incumbent upon the journalists themselves and the people they work for to approach this as one problem and approach it in a unified manner. I think that's the best way to come about sort of coming to grips with this.
Okay, so hold on, stay with me, Mr. Dietz. Mr. Abbas, what I want to ask you is, when Salim Shehzad was killed, everybody thought this is going to be one case that's so in the limelight that we're going to see some results. When the Inquiry Commission's report comes out, the media is going to be all over it. We didn't see any results. Why was that?
I think the media, Aisha, I would say one thing is that I think played its role. The media was out there. The media was protesting. There were sort of hunger strikes and protests and whatnot. And, it was all over the place, all over the talk shows and in news. And I think it was in the headlines for over a month or something like that. But what I'm saying is that I think both the organizations and the government, if the government can't do anything, at least they can protect the witnesses. I mean, in Wali Khan Babar's case, and Bob knows it very well, that, there was a young journalist who was shot down in Karachi. Mm-hmm. The culprits were arrested. All the witnesses were killed. And the government cannot provide protection to the witnesses. So, what the journalists can do? We can't become the police. We are not the state. What can we do? If the journalists, if the government can't even, leave alone protecting the journalists, they can't even protect the witnesses. Then what can the journalists do?
So two things, Mr. Abbas. One is, yes, I agree with you that when Salim Shehzad's death happened, at that point the media was all over the place, all over it. There were hunger strikes, there were protests, and it was in the headlines. But in the next few months, as the inquiry commission sat down and came out with no names, very generic, oh, it must have been the agencies, the media didn't go after them and said, what's this commission doing? Why don't we have culprits? So it was almost like, yes, there was limelight in the beginning, but it died down when it came to really delivering. So I want to find out exactly. Go ahead, please.
No, I mean, like, you are, in a way, you're right. I mean, it's like, like, keep following up on the story, but then another story comes, another journalist got killed, and, like we start following that story, and then another journalist gets killed, and we start, and, we start covering that story. So, yes, you're right that we should have pursued that story much more. But, like, this is like in a country where now, every other month, journalist is getting killed, then something needs to be done by the media organizations and the government. The journalists keep on doing protests. So every time something happens, Salim Shahzad is mentioned and all. There are songs made, there are promos made. But, like there's a limit to it that you cannot keep on television, on media, if you are not getting any help from your own organization or from the government.
So, Mr. Dietz, when you talk to the government, I know you haven't talked to the current government, but the previous governments, what do they say about protecting witnesses? And what do media organizations say? Because I know when you go there, you talk to the heads of these organizations. What do they say about providing life insurance, providing training, making sure when the journalists go out, at least they're in a protected environment?
Most of the people with whom we speak in Pakistan are very open with us and greet us openly. But in the end, once we leave, nothing, in fact, changes. We met with President Zardari. We met with the Interior Minister Sherpa under Musharraf. And now we hope to meet with some people in the Nawaz government. I think there's an understanding that something has to be done and that they have to respond quickly. But on the other hand, I don't see them really having the capacity to drive through or follow through and make even the most basic justice system or the police system or the investigative system work in an effective manner. I would like to respond a little bit to Azhar, who I think he has a very good point. These killings come and these killings go. You mentioned Salim Shahzad and the special commission to investigate his death. There was a special commission to investigate the death of Hayatollah Khan in 2006. There was a special investigative commission to address the attacks on Umar Chima a few years later. These special commissions are almost a sop, a way of getting around the responsibility of the police going out, conducting an investigation, bringing people to trial, having a trial, having a conviction, and having a sentence. And following that, we haven't seen that in any cases in Pakistan, except for the case of Danny Pearl. And frankly, that trial was almost could be considered a show trial. What we're seeing in the case of Wali Khan Babar is the inability of the government, although we're supposed to get a verdict in March, I believe, the inability of the government to push through on a trial, to protect witnesses. I think correct me, Azhar, I'm right, 5 or 6 witnesses and relatives of witnesses have been killed in this case. And in fact, my understanding is that a very strong case hasn't been able to be brought. What I'm seeing is the failure of a justice system, a police system, and a justice system to address these problems.
Now, one of the things I hear, Mr. Dietz, stay with me, and I want to ask both you and Mr. Abbas, one of the things we often hear from the government is it's not just the journalists that are dying. A lot of people in Pakistan are dying. We can't give special attention to this one group. Mr. Abbas, do you buy this argument?
Well, 2 things. One is that, yes, there are a lot of people dying, but if there is a bomb blast, let's say, in a marketplace, a lot of innocent people die. But they are not killed because, they were writing against a certain organization or a certain ideology or something like that. Just and killed is totally different. journalists who are targeted is because of a certain reason that that person is targeted. And they are the voice of the people. If you start shutting down such voices, then one day will come when nobody will be there to speak for the public or for anyone. So that it's two different things. Government can't say, like just because a lot of people are being killed, and that's why we can't protect those journalists. Here, I want to add one thing also, Aisha, that once again, and Bob also I think probably mentioned, or you mentioned it, that as far as the government is concerned, we know that the government has, like political dynamics and other things. In Wali Baba's case, in Salim Shahzad's case, some agencies are involved or political parties involved. That is a lie of the government. Something there are different things. But what are the media organizations doing? Right now, we are launching a channel where we are giving life insurance to the family. If something happens, for as long as the family is there, they are dependent, we are going to provide them, give them salary. For as long as the family is a dependent family. Something like that needs to be done. There are media organizations that are making a lot of money.
Why is it, Mr. Abbas? You've been part of those media organizations. I'm sure you've talked to the owners often on this subject. Why is it that they're not providing this kind of insurance?
It is exactly the same. This apathy is there. It is exactly the same attitude as you mentioned, or Bob mentioned, that the government says, there's something, a lot of people are getting killed, so why only journalists and all. This is the apathy in this country, that the workers, the professional journalists who go out and risk their lives to bring news, to make the news channels or the newspapers popular, are not protected because of some meager amount of money or little money. Even if they're making a lot of money, even if these media organizations are making a lot of money, not realizing that one day the journalists people will stop coming into journalism because of this. People will stop reporting.
You will have a brain drain from journalism. So let me come to both of you. Mr. Deet, starting with you. Have you seen any difference in the coverage, in news coverage in Pakistani media because of the journalists getting no protection?
I've been looking at Pakistani journalism close since 2006. We're coming on 9 years now, really close to 10 years. And I've always seen the same pressures at work. It used to be that when I went to FATA, journalists would say, we're very cautious about what we report, that we always have to be aware that whatever we say will anger one side or another, and very often we simply don't file, we don't cover the story. I'm seeing that now in Quetta, where people are still trying, where it's most likely worse than FATA at this point, where people are either covering stories, they're covering it from a particular political slant, or they're staying away from it, or they're putting it onto online sites and blogs and those sort of places. In Karachi, I've heard anecdotal stuff about newspapers pulling back, newspapers giving excess or more coverage to militant groups and those sort of things. I think this has always been a dynamic in Pakistan. Looking at it from New York, it looks like the tension has risen and the pressure has risen on journalism. And the violence within the country has grown as well. I don't know whether this is going to be cyclical and whether we'll see a decline and a recovery. But for now, it looks like there is an incredible amount of pressure on journalists and news gathering organizations to pull back, dial back on what they're reporting. I also know that I know a lot of Pakistani journalists who would be very angry with me if I were to say that they backed away, that they're not doing their best and they're not saying exactly what they think has to be said. But yes, I do see more pressure on media organizations and journalists in Pakistan to curtail what they're saying.
So, Mr. Abbas, given what Bob Deeds has just said, which is journalists are dialing back, sometimes not even filing, do those owners of media houses that you say need to do something, do they even care?
Two things, Aisha. One is, I mean, I agree with Bob to a certain extent. I think some reporters or some people who are working in really, really difficult areas but do obviously compromise, and and then they have to. I mean, like if you're, like under a barrel of you're sitting with a barrel of a gun on your head, even to say the truth, it's very difficult. But as far as some newspapers and some media houses backing off, I think there are journalists who are still very bravely writing and reporting on what's happening in the country. It's the owners, and you have to. I mean, like I would blame certain owners for the way they have backed out after some attack, the way they have compromised things, the way they are giving more space to the militants. It is actually very, very unfortunate that the people who come on live on television, I mean, like in the case of the Express, what happened was that when their staff was killed, the Tehreek-e-Taliban chief spokesman came on live television and said, yes, we killed that person, and the anchor started apologizing, and then the media owners actually came up with a policy of not reporting against the militants. I mean, this is so unfortunate, but yes, I mean, like it's happening. It's true.
It's happening, but what can be done about it, Mr. Dietz? I mean, what do we do?
It's a difficult position, and it would be totally inappropriate for me to tell a journalist in reporting from Waziristan that don't listen to what you're being told. Just go out and report the story and do it as best you can when they're under a constant daily threat. I think the bigger issue here, that watching this from here, and I say this problem has existed a long time now, but watching this from here, we're seeing these sort of things evolving in Karachi, where they've existed in the past, but at a much lower level. But now in the largest city in Pakistan, Karachi seems to be coming under the same sort of rules of pressuring journalists that we've seen in the farther out areas like Fatah or Baluchistan.
Okay, so hold on just a second, because we have very little time left. So I want to get Mr. Abbas in here, who himself is a journalist, is now going to be heading a news channel and comes from a family of journalists. So Mr. Abbas, what are you doing as a journalist to make sure that journalism does not suffer at your channel?
In a very difficult situation, but I would still say that either we should quit the profession or keep telling the truth. There is no other way. I mean, if we don't want to tell, I would ask, I would always say to myself that if at any point I have to compromise on telling the truth, or the whole truth at least, I should quit the profession. And like there are tactical at a tactical level. Like at one day I may say, okay, fine. If a reporter is sitting in Waziristan or, like in a very difficult situation, I would not take that reporter live. Maybe that is a tactical move. But stop telling the truth is something that if we started telling our journalists and our reporters to stop telling the truth, then we should be better at quit journalism. So we are there. There are journalists who have, been attacked and all, who have been threatened. Knows very well the latest list that has come up. I mean, my name is there, and some of the other journalists' name is there. But that doesn't mean that we will stop telling the truth.
And VOA also has its reporters on that list. Diva Service particularly is on that list. But thank you so much, both of you, for joining me. Our guests were Bob Dietz, the Asia Program Coordinator for the Committee to Protect Journalists, and Arza Abbas, the CEO of upcoming channel Bold News. Thank you for watching. Please send us your questions or comments on our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. Goodbye and good night.